What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Cool Colas here, and you are now tuning into a new video on my channel. But before we get on to the topic for today, I would love for you to do a few things for me. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications for whenever I come out with new content on this channel. And then when you are finished, I would love for you to leave me a comment below. That way I can get back to whatever it is that you have to say at the end of this video. For today's topic, I want to talk about y'all's boy, Ryan Garcia, and his racist rant. And further, I want to talk about this thing that I've been seeing quite a bit, which is this idea of people who are racist or who are coons loving to be a thing without being called a thing. So let's talk about it. For those of you all who do not know, Ryan Garcia is a Mexican boxer. And very recently, he had this racist rant where he was saying stuff like fuck N-words. He was talking about George Floyd, and he had a lot of real slick shit to say about him. You know, he's been using all these little slurs and epithets and things like that. And very recently, he was expelled by the World Boxing Council because of his racist rant that he had, especially on Twitter. And so Ryan Garcia, as a response, gave a half-ass apology where he basically, in so many words, said, I apologize to those who, I offended with my words. And then he kind of deviated to him having some mental health issues and that being the cause of why he had this racist rant. And then he went on to basically go back and say, well, I still stand on what I said about black on black crime, because he also made some comments about black on black crime. So this is a big hot ass racist mess, and we really need to talk about this. So Ryan Garcia is obviously not white. He is a white Hispanic. So what's really happening is you're seeing a lot of white supremacy with taquitos on top. In other words, Hispanics and who are white and other people who basically are tools for the dominant society and act like them. They do anti-black things and say anti-black things, so they are pretending to be white supremacists. So in other words, they go on these anti-black racist rants, and then what they like to do, just like the white supremacists, is they like to cover up their racism and their anti-blackness by trying to deviate to something else. So ultimately, what I think this world is turning into is the people who are anti-black and racist, they love to be a thing without being called a thing. So they love to, for example, be a racist, but don't want to be called racist. And I think I had also said the same thing for a lot of these like coons out here. You know, a lot of black folks, they want to be a coon, but they don't want to be called a coon. So they want to act in that way, but then they want to deny whenever somebody calls them out for whatever it is, or they'll try to say, oh, what I'm doing is not coonery. Or like I said, a white supremacist would go back, and if you claim for them to be racist, they'll say, oh, no, what I'm doing, that's not racism. That's not racism. It's this. So in other words, they're literally being racist without wanting to be called or labeled as a racist. So what they do is these different tactics in order to cover up the fact that they are indeed a racist. So in the case of Ryan Garcia, his tactic and the thing that he used in order to cover up his racism was mental illness. And let me make it clear. Having a mental illness does not make you a racist. These things are not mutually exclusive. You can be a racist and be mentally ill, and you can be a racist and be mentally well. These two things are not mutually exclusive, and that is not a good excuse. So a lot of times they love to deviate to these different things as to why they behave the way that they do, when the reality is that these are just their ideals, and they're using this as an excuse in order to be absolved from the fact that they're being called, in the case for Ryan Garcia, anti-black. And let's really break down him doubling down on this whole thing with him talking about, I just want to make sure I take a stance on black crime. Sir, you are a tether. You are a tether who was tethered here to the United States from Mexico. The reality is that if you really want to talk about crime, let's talk about Mexico. Let's talk about all those damn cartels. Let's talk about the fact that that you have cartels of people that literally are kidnapping whole towns of people. You have all of these degenerate crimes. You have murder. You have all types of cases, human trafficking, all types of shit that goes on in your country, and you are not saying anything about it. So how dare you talk about a culture that you are not even a part of? Yes, that does make you racist. It does make you racist when you sit there and you finger wag at a different culture than your own without paying attention to yours, because it doesn't look like you actually care, because you don't. That's why you made racial slurs, which also proves that you're being racist. What it does is that it makes you look like a racist, because ultimately that's what you are. The reality is that when it comes to the Ryan Garcia situation, you got to look at everything outside of it as well, too. Every single person who was involved with this was also trying to deviate to the whole mental illness thing. Of course, you got Stephen A. Smith, who is a butter biscuit eating Sambo. Let's all be real. We all know it about him. He was sitting there even trying to, somewhat kind of, defend Ryan Garcia to a certain extent. Now, him basically admitting the things that he said doesn't mean that he wasn't defending him. And I think that's where people are probably going to take what I'm saying out of context. But let's be real. He was defending him, because if you look at the energy that Stephen A. Smith uses whenever he talks about black folks, it always is very defamatory. He always is trying to oust them and talk about what they're doing being so bad and so horrible and all this other stuff. I mean, think about the rant that he just had about OJ with BET and how that was despicable and all this other stuff. Yet with Ryan Garcia, you were kind of soft on him. And the reality is that you also, too, try to play into the fact that it, one, wasn't racist, and two, that it had something to do with mental health. Even the WBC even was trying to deviate to the fact that, we try to get him help and all this other stuff. And so that's the other thing that you need to make sure that you're paying attention to as well, too. Pay attention to everybody else around a situation. With this Ryan Garcia thing, with the WBC, it's not that they actually care about him being racist. They care about going down by being affiliated with someone who is racist. That's ultimately the problem. That's the problem with most of these businesses out here. They do not want to be affiliated with somebody who is anti-black or somebody who is racist, because it's going to hurt their money and it's going to hurt their pockets. So it's not about morality. I need you all to understand that. I need you all to realize that. So when they do that, that's the reason why they come out with these public statements about these people. And please believe, please believe, if this was somebody like Floyd Mayweather, he would lose all types of endorsements. People would stop supporting him. Companies would sever their relationships with him and all this other stuff. And he would go down. They would tell him to give a sincere apology and all this other stuff. Because if you think about it, a lot of times when black people, they say stuff that is deemed, for example, anti-Semitic, which is some stupid shit, and we won't get into that today, they're asked to apologize. And these black people, they apologize wholeheartedly. They don't take pot shots. They don't double back on what they're saying. They don't give half-ass apologies. They don't do any of that stuff. They literally say the apology, and they do not try to make sense of what they're saying or say, well, I'm sorry, but I stand on this. They don't do what Ryan Garcia was basically doing. So I'm trying to get you all to understand that it's not even just what he said that was racist. You got to look at everybody else around him and what was happening. Also notice, too, that it wasn't made as big of a deal as whenever somebody who is black does something in the media or is doing something that is deemed as discriminatory. Notice that it didn't get the same type of heat. The boxing community didn't speak up about it as much as they really could have. So it shows you about the way that people are either helping the dominant society, or they, capitulate to, whatever their agendas are, and or how the dominant society is trying to distance themselves from labels such as being racist or being affiliated with a racist. So that's the thing that you all have to understand. We're living in a culture where the worst thing that you can do and you can say about somebody who is white, if it is true, is, I don't know, that was weird. The worst thing that you can do or say about somebody who is white, if it is true, is that they are a white supremacist. That burns their ass, because the white supremacist does not want to be identified as such. They only want to act as such in quiet. That's why their system is very deceitful. And I was going to tell you, like, the thing about like the coon class, they actually do the same thing, because they in their minds have a white supremacist mentality, but they aren't really white supremacists. So they do the same thing. They coon it up and they do different things to, again, capitulate to the dominant society, but they don't want to be called as coons. And so, we've gotten to a space, too, especially where black people will do that. And then other people will even defend them by trying to give them an excuse as to why they're cooning. A good example of this is Kanye West. A lot of times Kanye West has done a lot where he has been really just kind of samboing it up. I mean, he wore a Confederate flag jacket. He was he was bug dancing for Trump. I know y'all remember that. He was wearing a White Lives Matter T-shirt, but then, you know, he then tried to get in the good graces of Black society, really pro-Black society, by saying stuff about the Jews, and then also all this, that kind of rant that he went on. The thing is that people, when they saw Kanye West do this type of stuff, the two things that they deviated to try to defend him was, one, they try to deviate to his work ethic and his business savvy to say, well, you know, he's done a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, you know, he's made billions of dollars, and, you know, he's a free Black man. So, I mean, what can you say? So they're trying to use his work ethic or his business savvy to compensate for the fact that he is samboing. Or the second thing, and this is the biggest thing I heard about Kanye, is the fact that they're like, well, he has a mental illness. I mean, you know, he's been acting crazy ever since his mom died and all this other stuff. So they try to make excuses, basically, to, in other words, make it so that this person is not being called this label. And the reality is that you gotta let niggas have these labels. If somebody is calling this person a sambo because they're samboing, let it be. Stop being a bitch about it. Same thing with the racist. If you see a person who is acting like a white supremacist, the best thing that you can do is call them out as a suspected white supremacist. Not, oh, they had a mental health crisis. Oh, they were just trying to bring up a systemic issue that they're worried about. Oh, they care about this. Oh, they care. No, their asses is racist. Their asses is racist, and you need to call it as such. That's why I told you all in a video before, we have got to stop shunning this idea of labeling people based off of their behaviors, or at least the pattern of their behaviors. If you have a pattern of cooning, that makes you a coon. If you have a pattern of being a white supremacist, that makes you, or doing white supremacist actions, that makes you a suspected white supremacist. You always want to label people based off of the patterns of behavior that they show you, and stop making excuses for their bullshit. Now, I know that we got, you know, away from the whole Ryan Garcia thing, but the thing that I'm basically trying to get at is that you have got to call these people out when they do these types of things, because if you don't, you're allowing the dominant society system to continue. You know, they do something racist. And then the dominant society and the people who they work with, who could be changing their livelihood, you know, will make decisions in order for them to not be associated with that as well, too. And so you can even see how all this pans out, and you can see how everybody gets real squirrely when the idea of racism or white supremacy gets thrown around. They don't want to really be affiliated with that, but they want to still do it. So that's why I said, just be very clear that this is exactly what they're doing. People who apologize in the dominant society only do it because they do not want to get caught, and they do not want to get labeled, not because they care about being better people who want a fair and just society. Anyway, y'all, hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say about this topic. I will have more on other topics coming soon that are similar. Other than that, I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all's day, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.